everybody to The Creative Moment. Jamie Bullhauer, Dante Bullhauer, two creatives, Season 5, Episode
8.
And
a new bubbler flavor.
And for those of you that don't know, that don't watch my personal YouTube channel, the new flavor of bubbler, watermelon lime.
First taste for me.
First taste for him, not for me. I've had two already. It's good, by the way. Top 5. Whoa, okay. Well,
Lemon lime, you just got mad at you.
Lemon lime was not happy with me saying that. That's a little weird. But two creatives in the creative space, a writer, a photographer, digital media kind of guy, whatever. And we are back with finally a tripod.
Someday we should talk about the hacks that we have done to produce things.
Yeah, it has been 3 months since I've had an actual tripod. I don't know if you guys noticed or not. But anyway, we're here with our 8th episode of the 5th season. And we're here to bring you some value, as always. So first, I just want to get the reaction of the watermelon. Watermelon lime is a new flavor.
Yeah, it's summery. Like it's got
very hard watermelon.
Yeah, it's hard watermelon and then just a little bit kick of the lime at the end.
Yeah.
But no, not bad. Like all the bubbler flavors are good, but everybody does have their own favorites.
Yes. This is the thing that you pack in the cooler with a Tropical Dreamer, which is the koozie that I have, even though it's the lemon lime. But the two summer flavors, I feel like they have hit on.
Yes, that's a summer flavor.
Yeah. So with that, today we are talking about 3 skills that you need to succeed in the creative industry. We can maybe specify it to our certain kind of pockets of the industry, but kind of a generalization of 3 key components that you need to succeed.
Because one of them that I thought of is kind of universal, and we've talked about some. Yeah. But I read an article yesterday. It's a little blurry week. We've had a sick sister, daughter. Been trying to scramble all week.
Had to buy scooters for my mom. Yeah. She called me and said it was
could not believe
her
she told
smoothie.
Yeah.
It was for... Sorry, Lynette. It was for your large sea salt, caramelicious,
mocha,
whatever.
Mocha.
That thing.
Anyway, I'd read an article, and it was something about how important metaphors are in our language, and not just in a sense of like good metaphors, because if you make a metaphor that's too contradictive or something like that, then it doesn't make sense. Like, it was a really good article. I could probably look it up, but it's just like, people have talent, and maybe we'll talk about talent, but you have to have a skill set, and we've talked about that too. And it's just like, what skills do you need as a photographer that you can develop no matter, the technology is in play. I get that. Good cameras, my phone camera versus your camera. I get that, but there's still skills. You still have some skills. So that's what got me.
I can take a photo with an iPhone that someone else can take with an iPhone, that if they knew the skills I would, that I know that they would take a different photo.
And then I sent you, like, I was trying to mess around, learn a little bit. Yep. And I sent you that picture that I was editing, and I'm like, I really don't know the cause and effect of everything, but I was messing with the settings. And I got, like, I thought I got a clearer, obviously I got a clearer picture of the seeds and stuff, because it was a really dark images at night. So I was just like, but I was sitting there going, how does warmth affect sharpness? Like, I didn't understand, honestly, what I was doing.
Yeah.
I knew how to do it, but I didn't have... I was lucky to get a good...
The specifications of the industry.
Yes.
Yeah. So, that's what we're breaking down today. Obviously, some of your skills might not be some of my skills.
Right.
They can overlap to an extent, but this is a little bit more industry specific, a little more dialed in. So why don't you go first with your first?
My first skill was, and it was based off of this article, in that idea, and we have that quote: "You got to know the rules to break them."
Yeah,
but not grammar. As I was saying, especially being a poet, and delving with spaces like on the app formerly known as Twitter, and doing slams and publishing books and getting feedback. And it's like, okay, there are literary elements, all right? So that's the umbrella term of things like simile, personification, metaphor, irony, allusions with an A, which means a historical reference, alliteration, different things like that. And that's not grammar. Okay? But getting into and understanding the language and building a metaphor or a simile that is expressive, that builds that bridge, which is something we talk about, between what you want to say and what the reader will understand. And I do not remember where I had heard this from, but I think I mentioned it before. I had read, or I was at a conference where they said to just copy down a paragraph of your favorite writer. Like, write like them. Write like Ernest Hemingway. Write like Stephen King. Write like Links. Like, actually write it, not type it. Sorry, technology is awesome, but honestly, there's something powerful about the human connection. And get a feel of how it works in your brain and how it comes across. And I think that little hint or that idea lends itself to the first skill is understanding the literary elements and practicing it. We've talked about what you do with the bad stuff, but write similes. I've shared that on social media. One of the small projects my 7th graders like is the friendship simile, where if you remember that on a piece of paper they write friendship is like, and then they have to draw a picture. That's all they can do. They cannot explain it. And I shared like last quarters, and there's all kinds of things that happen, and I'm like, understand you're not talking about all of friendship. You're talking about one component of it, because friendship has joy, friendship has heartbreak, and they usually come up with some really cool drawings. And that's doing something like that helps you strengthen your skill set of that literary element. And you can do that with metaphors and obviously studying, yes, reading Wordsworth or whatever, but actually writing, doing small things, doing something with a word prompt, with the outcome that this is not going to be published, So my first skill set, I think, that you can do is understand and practice literary elements. And even if it ends up being a practice like simile, that simile might end up in a poem or somewhere else, but you're working on it, you're strengthening your understanding and ability to develop a bridge between you and the reader.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times when you don't, like you talked about similes that the reader will understand, it's not only that they will understand it, but that they can relate to it.
Yes.
And figuring out, okay, I can make a simile like this or a metaphor like this, but the general population or my target audience will not necessarily relate to that in the same way.
If you make one so drastic. Yep. And that's part of that article what I really loved was you can't come up with a metaphor that only you understand. Yeah. You have to build one that most people will get.
Yeah. And so that is similar to what my first skill set is. And so flipping to the photography, digital media side is composition. It is something that I probably underemphasized in my first year and a half of my digital media creation stuff. I just thought, and I've talked about this, centering everything, right? You don't have to really compose an image if your whole subject matter is in the center every single time. That's not composition. That's just putting something in the middle of the photo.
Yep.
So, and this lends into all aspects, like graphic design, video. Like, I had a serious, not problem, but just habit of... centering everything. I wanted... And at the time, I justified it as, okay, this is the subject. They should be in the center of the image, the graphic, the whatever. Learning how to use the rule of thirds and playing with different angles that change the composition, that maybe it's not necessarily conducive to be shooting down at someone and have them centered. Maybe it feels better to put them on the right third or whatever. Understanding composition and understanding how to use it to your advantage to create the emotion that you want helps tenfold in helping your photos convey that message. And it doesn't even take that much more skill. It's just simply kind of moving your camera, figuring out, okay, I want negative space. Obviously, if they're in the center, there's negative space on the right and the left. What if I just moved it so that where they're looking, I move them to the left third so they're looking and there's 2/3 of the space where it's negative. And it looks like they're looking out onto whatever. Learning how to manipulate composition to tell your story better was tenfold for me. Because anybody, like, if you took a photo of, say, someone got an and one in basketball, per se, and they were, like, flexing, like, super, like, pumped out about the basket, you can center frame them, or you can frame them so that there's more of the crowd in the background, or you can put them on the other side so that it looks like you don't know kind of what they're flexing to or celebrate. Like, learning the composition rules and how it affects the story of your photo is huge to me, and that's something that I really feel like I grew at this year was, and not just rule of thirds. There's a ton of different ratios. The golden ratio is one that I've never touched, and if you don't know what it is, look it up. It's a weird thing.
I know
yeah. But like the foreground versus background, there's a whole ton of caveats to it. But understanding just kind of in the moment subconsciously, okay, what if I just moved it this way or did this, will help you exponentially. Whether it's graphics, video, or photo, you will be able to transform your media in ways that the consumer doesn't even understand, but they subconsciously feel it when they see it. And when you change it, it creates a different emotion. And a lot of times the consumer can't even articulate what it is, but they know it.
Yeah, one of your recent basketball ones, I think, and I'm just sometimes we're organic here. We're just talking as we thought. I remember it's the back shot, with the thing, but they're off to the left this time, and it's like dark, like whatever the lighting, and as we were talking about that yesterday, and it just instead it just had a different vibe. You felt like alone.
Yep.
In that sense, and
because there's 2/3 of the negative space instead of 1/3 on each side.
Yeah, and it's just like, or you get that feeling of a moment in a game. Something's like we're either like you got that. You don't even know what time it is in the game. Yeah. It's just what you know,
and that's what the consumer doesn't realize that, but when they consume it, you feel it.
Yeah.
And so understanding that will exponentially transform your content when you can finally dial that in and know, okay, I need to have them here or here on the composition. There was a video I made for Freeman where it was a kind of like, they called it Pack the Nest, where they tried to fill up the stands or whatever. And I had the kids that were chanting like defense, defense in the bottom right like little square, because you could see the other 8 squares were the crowd. But the focus was on these kids down at the bottom right because they were the ones that you could hear through the mic. And so that made it feel like it was more full because you could hear the people that were in focus and you saw blurred, but you saw the entire crowd. And so when you kind of start to understand and implement that into what you're shooting or designing, it just clicks so much better.
And I think it is a skill. I know you didn't mean it as that it's not difficult, just stuff, but you have to develop that skill so that when you're actually live doing this stuff, you can get the shot that you want. And understanding transition shots, taking stuff ahead of time or whatever, and knowing that. You don't just randomly click, you got to have that skill set ready to go.
Yeah, so composition and understanding how it kind of flows with your work is my first skill. So
my second skill is technology based a little bit. Or it's in the idea, and this is lending itself to goals of being published and maybe doing your own stuff. Since I'm an indie author, that's all I know. But also within poetry and even working with short stories and doing that, you need to improve your skill set of understanding whatever Word document application you use to create line breaks, to get them ready for whatever site that you might use to publish. It's sometimes daunting. It is sometimes daunting, and many of the sites have tutorials to help you with margins and where your headers go and your page numbers and doing those things. But as I was because poetry too, it is obviously meant to be spoken, but on the page, it has a presentation aspect too. Excuse me. It's how the reader will read the lines. So understanding how to do the tab, and then when you got to move it, if you're doing something like in WordPress or Blogger, and you're trying to move it over, and then the line breaks go away. I'm sorry, in this day and age, you got to improve your skill set of understanding whatever it is. If it's Google Docs, Word, whatever, the Open Office, you got to learn some of the ins and outs of that a little bit. Down the road, maybe you're just publishing a poem or two here, or if you're on WordPress, I think lots of authors and poets do want to have a collection. They want a chapbook. So getting to know that will help you speed up having a book put together, and even dealing with short stories and things like that. As we experiment with the form, you got to know a little bit, not maybe total HTML5, whatever, but still, you got to improve your skill set with the tools that you use for.
Yeah, similar to the composition, the reader will read it subconsciously how it's presented. Mm-hmm. And so if your spacing is off, if your paragraph, all that sort of technical stuff is kind of weird, it'll feel clunky to the reader.
Yeah.
Whether you think so or not. So if you don't have the correct spacing or whatever in it just doesn't connect, and that could be the difference between a great poem and an average poem, even though it's the same words.
Right.
The presentation of that.
And don't take, I know some people, unpopular opinion, are like, well, I'd format this the way. I'm reading a great book. This is one of those books I'm having a hard time put down, but they decided not to do dialogue in quotes. So it just reads.
Interesting.
Oh, this kind of it's a thing now. But this book was actually done in the 90s, so I don't. And just it bothers me because it reads, and he's the writer. It's his choice. I get that. I'm not. But I'm just saying that you got to know those things because they do matter. They do matter. And at the end of the day, that bridge is your responsibility.
Yep.
And so it's not like you probably didn't know how to put quotes, but I'm just saying sometimes even those small things, even in a graphic design, we recognize those things.
Yep.
We do. And so you need to be in control of as much of the presentation, words, similes, and the look on the page as best as possible so that you achieve the goal that you want in that expression.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great because like I've talked about this with some other people. You have to dumb it down. This is not intended as a negative thing, but you have to dumb it down so much for the consumer that they don't have to think about what they're consuming. They just consume it. Because if they have to think about, okay, did they mean this? Like, that's kind of weird. You lose them immediately. And so if you present it so smooth and fluidly that they're like, wow, that was super easy to consume, that is what turns out successful products.
Yeah. Or it doesn't mean you can't cover deep stuff either, but you got to build the bridge. You got to scaffold.
Yep.
Teacher slang there. You just got to scaffold it, and you do that by presenting it well. Poetry is obviously a little bit more tricky in that regard because there's lots of stuff. But how that line break, and if you tab way over here, like we're reading here, and poets have done this, and all of a sudden your eyeball has to go way over here. Like, well, what? Why am I doing that? And so both the emotion and the mind come into play on that part.
Yeah. So my second thing, this is slightly more geared toward the business side of it, but it is flexibility. So this is something that I have really had to kind of learn on the fly with. The ability to be flexible with not only just scheduling but also vision has been something that
that's a little bit tricky too, though.
I have found instrumental. A lot of times, so a lot of my clients are obviously non-creatives. I mean, if you're a creative, a lot of times you want to make it yourself.
Yeah, or need help, yes,
need a catalyst. So a lot of my clients are coaches, people that just are not as well versed as I am in the creative realm. A lot of times they know what they want. It's hard to articulate it. It's hard for them to kind of voice it in a way that I understand, okay, this is how I'm going to execute it. And so kind of pushing the flexibility of like dates and scheduling thing aside, the vision that people have versus the vision that you have and the compromise that has to happen is something that you have to master in, because if you are slightly abrasive in it, you'll lose that. A potential repeat client, you'll lose them. Yep. You'll get your bill, you'll get your check, whatever, and then they'll never talk to you again. And so something that I have really had to adjust to, and I think I've done a really good job of, because I have, to this point at least, I've rarely had someone that's not that is a potential repeat client that's not.
Yeah.
I
know you've gone through some.
But yeah, there has been things that I don't really think is a good vision or a good idea that I'm told, hey, what if we did this? And I'm like, that would suck. That's terrible. But learning the flexibility of this is what they want. Yeah. This is the vision that they want. And whether I like it or not, it doesn't really matter, because they're showing it to their audience.
Yep.
I'm catering to them. You have to kind of toe the line. And there is a line in the sand of, okay, this is not a vision that I will align myself with, which I haven't really run into yet, but it is a line that I've come close to. But learning to be flexible with, this is my creative vision, this is great, all this, and then getting the feedback of, I want to kind of go in this direction, is an adjustment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that you don't really think about. You think, oh, they'll get my vision, they'll get this, and they just, and this is not like shame on them, but they just can't articulate what their vision of the video or graphic is, and you have to kind of,
because they don't have the vocab.
Yeah.
They don't.
And that's like, it's just part of the business. And if you want to be successful, you have to understand what they're trying to say without them being physically able to say it.
And on the business side, never believe when they say, we just trust your artistic.
They don't. They do
not. Not that they don't, but they have. They
do up to here.
Yeah,
and
they have a vision because that's why they hired you, because they believe in your skill to get it done.
You can execute that vision.
Right, but they don't say it.
Yes.
They, like...
And so just being able to be fluid and understanding they're not criticizing you necessarily or your work. They appreciate it, but if they want to convey a specific message, theme, whatever, you're going to work through some hurdles to get
even
there.
If it ends up not being
up to your
standard. Like it should,
I have had several clients who are like, hey, what if we added this or whatever? I'm like, what? That's terrible. That's awful. Why do I need that? That like,
it off centers this or
like
the
that
contrast
that does not fit with what I did. Understanding this will make them happier. It will maybe
or bridge the gap, help bring them.
You're like, hey, what if we did this? Still include this photo or this asset, but kind of morph it. You have to be able to be flexible to be successful in the business. And a lot of times there are very few clients, and I'm grateful for the clients that are okay with basically whatever I do, but there are very few clients that never have any changes, adjustments, anything. And so you have to be able to take that with a grain of salt and say, it's not about you. It's not about your product. They like your product, but they want a certain type of message or theme or whatever to go into it that you just have to adjust to. And if you want to be successful, you can't just be it's my way or the highway, because you will lose clients like that.
Yeah. And I think on the opposite side, though, you can't just totally be, whatever you want, I'll just do, because
your brand will suffer.
Yeah, and their vision doesn't get expressed as well as it could be.
Yep.
And so if you can build that bridge or help them understand why you want to do that, or go, okay, we could do this, but this might, then both parties, everybody's happy with the poster or whatever that they paid for and everything. You elevated their it's just you can't be on the edges in this case. That's
because they might think this conveys the message better, and you might, from your experience, know it'll express it either way. We don't need this.
Yeah.
And so having the flexibility and towing the line and not reaching either extreme, I think is huge in being able to be successful. Because if you're not easy to work with on either side of the spectrum, you'll end up just failing regardless. So,
and that kind of flows in my third. The third skill is interpersonal, and your aspect of relationship building with your customer, it has that part to it. Okay, see if I can express this well, because it's a little bit deep, but you have to work and build the skill of being able to capture your muse, your inspiration. You got, and whether the idea is sketched out, recorded by voice, and on notebook. And why I say it's a skill, because here's why. Hey, for anybody who is creative and stuff and is delved into that, you get ideas or thoughts or inspirations at any time. And sometimes it is in the most inconvenient time or the weirdest time or just just like I don't have, or we all have our phones now, even though we can do. So you have to build the skill to be okay being odd. Is maybe the best way I can say it. And at that, even if it's at the moment, if you've I have like 5 followers on Instagram, but I
you have like 3,000 on Twitter, so it evens out.
Yeah. But I do some really weird photos. Not weird, they're just like, but I'm like walking, I'm doing, and I'm all like, oh, that looked like really. And people are watching, or or I'm recording in my phone, or I have a notebook with me, like in my computer bag and everything, and I will capture it, and I know that there are people who are like, what is he doing? Okay, and you just have to feel okay being odd when that inspiration hits. I do, and we've talked about it before, but I do go against Stephen King in the sense of having a notebook, like, because I can go back. If I have the inspiration somewhere, I can use it. I can tap into, get back to that.
Yep.
But if I don't have it, it's gone.
Yep.
And it's just, in some ways, as I'm getting older, this is on a little personal, it's just like, how many poems didn't get written because I let them go? Like, I didn't do something, or even if it's a photograph, or just any of my creative stuff, that it's gone. I will never get that poem, whatever it was, the chance to see the light of day. And again, I'm like 102. It's
close. Halfway.
Yeah, halfway.
See if he gets there.
It does wait. It's interesting now looking back.
Thoughts that you never got the chance to put into a finished product.
Whether it's a blog, it's a whatever. And I think youth, you may think like I've got time, or that thought will come back, or that it doesn't. It doesn't. So you got to just build that skill set and have the equipment with you, whether it's a notebook. Your phone is with you all the time.
The Notes app is readily available.
Yeah. But again, I do like pencil to paper. I think it's more powerful. Just start taking those notes, jotting down those ideas, sketching them out, whatever it is that is there, so that when you do have the time, you get to your workspace. Last video, you can get to work. Yep. You can work with it,
and you don't have to be like, I got to come up with something.
Yeah.
You have it there.
Oh yes, I've got like on my note apps, I've got poem idea they're just there, and I go back, and yes, it's cloud based, so it's on my computer. I open up that, and I'm like, okay, here's that idea I got. So the heart of the third skill set is interpersonal, yes, feeling odd, but it's based in the idea of not ever missing the opportunity to work with your inspiration, because you were inspired for some reason. So get it recorded so that it has a chance to be out in the world.
Yep. And I think it is, at least for me, so increasingly fewer and farther between your great ideas and your muse hitting you, that when you have that, even so, I want to start kind of a little just personal podcast of just me talking about psychology, my life, whatever, and all the ideas I think of I write down, because I'm like, I'm not going to remember these in 30 minutes. We've talked about this before, of your life is so full of everybody trying to get your attention, every app, every person, like all this, that when you have that idea, when you have that interpersonal kind of interaction with yourself, it is so crucial to get it somewhere where you can come back to it, because you're not always conducive to have that, to sit down and have that creative thing where you can produce it into even a rough draft or final product. And so it's hard to just kind of articulate that and then be able to then sit down and be like, okay, I remember how I was feeling at this point. Here's the poem or the photo or whatever that I want to articulate this thought or whatever. And so it is crucial to have those kind of interpersonal things, because it's not always like, very rarely are you on a walk and you are like, oh, I have my notepad here, I can just write this down, I can figure out a whole poem. You go back 8 p.m. The girls are asleep, whatever.
Yeah, and then you work on
you
it.
can dive in.
Yeah,
you can get into the flow. And so that's
and those times when you're hit with inspiration and stuff like that, and you get to work on it, that also fills your spirit, fills your bucket a little bit. And it becomes a habit. We talked about habits, and even that. So if you build that skill and have the tools with you and feel uncomfortable, because honestly, it was actually a compliment, and it didn't make me feel odd. But I had a coworker at the ESU, because I came in and said, "Look at what I did." I took some photos, just being me. I was inspired on the way to.
Sure, they were great.
They were, and she just kind of goes, "You just do whatever when you're inspired, don't you?" And I'm just like, well, not all the time. I mean, I honestly, even now, I still don't. There's stuff, but I've gotten better. Like, if I will I've got Post-it notes everywhere. I've got things like that. But I was like, yeah, because that something is speaking to me, whether it's the sunset, beautiful thing. It's just, you are inspired. Creatives live, that's our fuel. So find being okay with being uncomfortable or people looking at it, whatever, but don't waste an opportunity.
Yeah. And the more you negate that feeling, the less you're going to act on it moving down the line. If you're like, oh, I run into this at state events. I'm like, okay, everybody's just on the baseline, whatever. What if
because they're typical photos.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what it is.
What if I went
if you got
behind
the idea
bench or did this or whatever? I'm like, I would be a sore thumb or whatever. Everybody would kind of be like, what is he doing? But at the same time, I pride myself in getting stuff that nobody else gets. And you can't do that doing what everybody else does.
Yep.
So thinking about what about if this car is driving by and they're mad or they like think of me weirdly because I took this photo or whatever. Like, you just got to get past
I'm on my walk and I'm down here with my phone and I'm
of this puddle or whatever on the curb, like
or the mint.
Yeah,
there's a mint on the road.
Check out J.90 Instagram and you'll see exactly what he's trying to talk about here.
Oh man.
But yeah, I think that's a huge skill that you need in order to break through. Mm-hmm. You can be successful being like everybody else, but if you want to break through, you have to be you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of people just confidence-wise don't really have. So my third one, and this relates a lot to just kind of how I try to live my life, is be kind. Kindness. I do a lot of mental health speeches. I do a lot of digital media stuff too, and I still bring this up. If you want to be successful in any industry, this is not even bound by the creative limits. You have to be kind, and you have to be able to mean it. You have to be genuine. You can't be fake nice to people. It has been still under 2 years that I've been fully my own business, but the repeat clients that I have, and so I work for the Nebraska Schools Activities Association, huge contract for me. They said that their biggest reason for sticking with me, even though I left Strive, was how easy I was to work with, how positive I was, all that stuff. If you want to make it in this industry, people always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's true, but at the same time, it's not just who you know, it's how you treat those people and those connections and all that stuff. I received a Twitter notification 2 days ago or something after a retweet from the Osceola head coach of, if you're a coach, you should work with Dante, whatever. And that got me a lead. And then the next day, it got me another lead. That was because I treat that team, that coach, so well that they feel compelled to support me back. And the kindness that I show to all of my clients, or that I try to show to all my clients, leads to more business, more success, all that stuff. The reason I have been able to lock in a 3-year deal with the NSAA, I feel like 25% of is because how kind I am to them, how much I am willing to be, make the extra leap, go the extra mile for them, and be kind and all that stuff. That's part of my contract price, I feel like. Mm-hmm. And so if you are abrasive to work with, even if your product is miles ahead of the competition, if you are not good to work with, if a client gets a little sense that you're just in it for the money, you will lose 50% of your business simply because of that. And so that's where I put just as much time into my client relations as I do my work, I feel like, because it leads to so many more opportunities and so much more good PR, which is in the creative industry huge.
Yeah.
And that is
and I hope that, like, it is a skill. It is a skill.
Absolutely.
And it's not for, because even as a teacher, even as a poet, as a help you, the world has got enough of the other stuff.
Yep.
It does. Sorry.
Anytime you go on Twitter,
we got
it's
it.
Negative.
Yeah. We got it. Like, okay, thank you. It's more like by being kind to other people, you also find the strength to handle the hards, the drops, the lows and stuff, because you know that kindness even to yourself is a part of it. And it's more complex than just saying thank you.
Yes.
It'd be because there's a sense of pride in what you do. Like, that my classes are very organized, and like that helped out this week. It was bad not being in the classroom as this week, but all this, like, I go that extra mile. I don't, like, we do that because it is a part of, I think, also real, genuine creativity.
Yeah, and it has to be genuine. You can't fake it.
People see through it eventually. Like, I mean,
whether
you can
think so or not. Yeah.
But I mean, now, like, within one job or two, like,
it becomes apparent.
Yeah. And our creativity, we've always stood on the definition, it is ourself. So in dealing with that expression, however magical it can be, as we talk about, it comes across in the work too. Across in the work.
You can see the intentionality. You can see the emotion that you put in, whether you think so or not, whether it's just words on a page or a graphic on a poster. You can tell.
You can. Yeah. It's just...
And that has been one of my biggest... I've felt like I've always been kind and cared about other people a lot more than maybe the average, but it has been emphasized through running the business of, okay, there's a reason that these people come back to me every year, even though maybe their team's not as good, maybe they don't have as good of an idea. They come back because, and I've got testimonials about this, I'm easy to work with, I'm super positive, I make them feel good about themselves or their product or whatever.
Well, because it's their vision too.
Yeah.
Like, being kind to them respects their vision.
Yeah, I'm not just saying that sucks. I don't, seriously. Like, there's no way you're winning the championship this year, doing this, doing that. Like, the NSA wanted this idea, whatever. It's like, let's do it. Cool.
Yep.
You can't fake it because it shines through your work. And again, like we talked about throughout this episode, the subconsciousness, you can feel it. You can feel what the intentions are through the final product. And so it has just been such a reassuring piece of, okay, I am always genuine. I have had this kind of label on me throughout high school. I care a lot about other people. I wear my heart on my sleeve, whatever, and it shines through my work, and my clients can see that. And that is what I attribute a lot of my success to, is because I can't fake be kind or care, because I'm just not wired like that. If I don't care, I'm just not going to take that job because I can't. I know that I won't be able to fake it and stuff. And so that is my third, is just kindness. I say this in all my mental health speeches. Kindness will take you farther than talent ever will. I'm not as talented as some other people I know, but I am easier to work with. I am nicer. I am more flexible. All this stuff that makes me a better vendor to work with.
And that skill, sorry, just flashback about it's not easy though either. No, because it is easier sometimes to just be negative or just like get on the side of the norm or the whatever. Like, I mean, it's the best way and you don't always win when you're the better person or the kinder person, but you're always centered, and you know that you
can live with yourself.
You can live with yourself. Yep.
Yeah.
So my 3 was learn the literary elements, similes, metaphors. Do that. Know your technology or the writing. If you're using Word, if you're Google Docs, whatever, or if you're trying to publish like on Amazon or Spill Words or whatever, know that. You don't have to be an expert, but you got to know it.
Yep.
And then in that sense of interpersonal, of just being okay, recording in some form or fashion your muse, your inspiration, so that you have the chance to give that inspiration life when you go to your workspace.
Yep. And then my 3 were composition, a little more technical side, and then flexibility and kindness. Those last 2 are more related to business. The line that I toe between creativity and business is so far blurred now.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It goes hand in hand with me. But yeah, composition, flexibility, and kindness, being easy to work with, are my 3. Hopefully you can implement at least one of those 6 skills that we outlined into your creative endeavors. We look forward if you kind of figure out a real world implementation. Leave a comment on whatever, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. We're on all of them.
Yeah.
We'll link our personals down. You can see his amazing photos that he takes when cars are driving by. Puddles, flowers, corn.
Oh, my moment of zen the other day when I slowed down the melting snow.
I'm going to take my kindness approach here and say they're great photos. Okay. And so, yeah. Anyway, this was The Creative Moment, Season 5, Episode 8.
2 more for this season?
Yeah. Happy to have you along for 5 seasons now. If you're just joining us, go check out the other 57 episodes. Love having you guys, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Oh.